So this one actually kind of caught me a little bit, all right? And I believe it was Lily made a Facebook post a while ago, a week or so-ish ago, I think. I don't know what the date is, so I'm kind of making it up. Within a week, let's just say. And the question was posted, what's a skill every locksmith should master? You know, the interesting thing about us is that I don't know how many times ever we've ever done like a paid Facebook ad. Very, very few, if any, maybe around like Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But so we don't do that. And it just kind of happens organically. What happens? Sometimes there's engagement. Some people comment, sometimes don't. And this one had over 200 comments. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What's going on here? And so it really made me think. I'm like, this is a good one. This really had, people have opinions on this one. And so I figured it'd be fun to go ahead and go through this together on the most common comment, the top comments, themes, and of course the funniest, because who doesn't like comedy, right? Who doesn't like a little bit of comedy? So with that said, let's go to the next slide and let's hop right in it here. All right, so now, of course, all of you in the chat hanging out here with us, for sure, put your input in on this one, all right? But what was the most popular answer? It was actually by a landslide, which was impressioning. Why is this important, right? And why would this be so important? And so I kind of want to dive in, kind of give you my perspective. Let's have a conversation together about it. So if you're watching live with us, please comment. If you're watching after live, comment. And, you know, let's keep the conversation going because I know you all have a lot to say, right? Which is impressioning. So why the most popular answer was impressioning? Why? I think it's because whether or not you do automotive work or standard locksmithing work, impressioning is a very important skill to learn. And I want to unpack this a little bit. So let's talk automotive. Automotive, there's still a lot of old school, right? Like if you run across a H51, H50 Ford key, tons of different, I mean, there's a whole slew of them out there. Motorcycle, you know, HD75, HD74, HD63 type keys, all of those things, like you can hand file, you can impression it, right? And so why do something the long and hard way, like this is taking a whole lock apart or the whole column apart and taking it out and decoding it and going the long way when you can just hand file it? So it's a time saver, it's a money maker, but I think the underappreciated thing about hand filing automotive wise or in general is that you have to actually learn what's going on. Is this H51 key? Is this motorcycle lock? Like if I'm seeing 7 little markings, I think I'm seeing 7 little markings on a H51 key for the spacing. Well, you have to know if that's correct or not, right? You have to know if that's correct. And you know, in this case, that'd be too many, right? That would be too many. And so if you know what you're looking for and you know the depths and you know that there's 4 depths or there's 5 depths or whatever it might be, it's really going to help you be better at your job in general. So it makes complete sense that if you do automotive work, like these things are important to you. Why take an hour job of just, you know, taking off a door panel or a trunk panel, taking the lock out, making sure you have an extra face cap, whatever it might be, you know, all of those different things. Maybe it's a boat ignition, right? All of these different things. And like taking it apart, ripping it apart, having to decode it, finding the right card. Why do all of that if you can learn this skill of impressioning? It's very important in automotive work. Now let's talk non-automotive work. Maybe it's a cam lock that has a rivet on the back. Maybe it's a mailbox lock. Maybe, I mean, there's so many different variables that if you don't know how to impression, you're going to have to take the long road, right? You're going to have to take the long road. So learning that skill is, I think, really important. And then second of all, the skill, you know, kind of like I did so many videos talking about on the Frame 2 machine, how by using it, it will actually make you a better locksmith. Right? Why? Because you're going to have to learn the space and depth information. And after a while, you'll be able to just look at a key and start to get an understanding of what's going on there, right? So many of the old timers, right? Like they can decode a GM6 cut by, squinting and looking at it, right? And all that kind of stuff. So I think that's really, really important. I see a question in there is how good is PJ at impressioning? Now, of course, today I don't impression every day, right? I'm not an active locksmith out in the field doing work today, but I can tell you something that I did to help me get better. I can't remember who I recently told this story to, but so for the longest time, I had a 2000 Jeep Wrangler. I actually had it for 16 years. It was a manual 4-cylinder with lifted tires, and the only way to get up hills was start shifting, right? And with that being said, it had a Y159 key. And working for my dad and sometimes struggling with impressioning, I was like, you know what? I need to get way better at this. So what I'm going to do is on a Saturday, I was like, I'm going to hand file a key for my Jeep door lock. Now, of course, there was cuts on the top and the bottom, right, which kind of makes it a little more difficult. Like a Y11 kind of thing, cam lock, those are pretty easy to hand file. The tolerances are, well, there's a lot of tolerance in those. And so what I did is I was like, listen, I'm going to do this, right? I'm not going to stop until I get this figured out. And so that's what I did. And it took me a while. I mean, I think it took me the first time impressioning the key for my Jeep door lock on a Y159. It took me about 4 hours, and it took me some keys, right? I started burning through them, cuts too wide, right? Like you would think, I mean, I was going too far down the file, and I was pushing it out. It just wasn't good. So learning all of those things and learning to get good at that, I think, is really important. And efficiency, as far as like, especially on a lot of stuff, you're doing a flat rate for a job. And if you're going to charge, let's call it $75 to hand file this or that, at that point, if it takes you 4 or 5 hours, well, first of all, you're going to be sweating. I know I'd be sweating. My hands are probably going to be blistered from trying to turn the key, right? Keep it jiggling. And, but most importantly, you're not going to make any money on that. So learning that skill makes you good. So in closing on this particular, why I believe impressioning is the most popular is really just what I said. I think it's a skill that works for both automotive and non-automotive work. There's a lot of jobs out there that if you know how to hand file, you can just get right to it and get it done. And if you don't know how to hand file, you have to go the long road. And well, guess what? Like, it's just going to take you a lot more time, effort, and energy, and maybe you don't even have all the parts, right? One of the things when you take something apart, you have to make sure you put it back together. So I think that is one of the main reasons why that was number one. Makes sense to me. I think it's a good skill. And the truth is, a lot of people struggle with impression. And I think it's okay if you do struggle, start with cam locks, right? Just pick up some cam locks or some file cabinet type locks. Do wafer to start. Go wafer, then go to pin tumbler, and work your way up, right? Just work your way up with that. And you will get better. You will get better. And I think with anything, right? Like, I tell you what, this weekend, one of those things is, like I like to golf. I don't golf in front of people very often, right? It's just me and whoever I'm playing with. We were doing this thing on Saturday where we got done playing just a little fun gentleman's tournament, I guess you could call it. And at the end, we were doing a closest to the pin on one of the holes. Now, there was a 9-hole course. We played through twice. Both times, the first time and the second time, I hit great shots right on the green. One was really close. It was really cool. But then so I'm like, man, I got this thing nailed. Well, guess what? I stand up there in front of, let's call it 25, 30 dudes. We're doing actually, it meant a lot this time. Closest to the pin, closest got a prize. And guess what? I hit my worst shot. Wasn't even on the green. Why? Well, it's because when you have to do it for real and around people and you don't do it often, it gets pretty intimidating. So how you work through that is you have to get some reps in, right? Get some impressioning reps in, get it done. All right, yeah, and e-bikes are a whole new challenge. As a matter of fact, I need to figure out how I can do some videos on those because, man, those are a whole different breed, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, let's call it kind of proprietary keyways on some, A lot of them take the same key. It's a kind of a whole new mess. It was kind of like, you remember when all the scooters came out, right? There's all sorts of these imported scooters, and a key would go in, you try to hand file it, when it never work. Well, what was the problem? It wasn't long enough, right? So I think e-bikes are a good example of that today. But all right, hey, Julio, let's go to question 2, or point 2. Number 2, customer service and people skills. Got a couple quotes here. One from Corey says, "You can be the most skilled locksmith in the world, and it doesn't matter if you can't show up on time and communicate properly." Then Steven says, "Too many locksmiths have the personality of a cardboard box." Woo! That's those are good. Those are good there. Pull that up with one more quick second here. Let's see here. Yeah, so you could be the most skilled locksmith in the world, and it doesn't matter if you can't show up on time and communicate properly. Right. And I think the point that we're getting at here, right, is if you want to have your own locksmithing business or be in the locksmithing space, impressioning, which was the number one thing mentioned, is one skill. Customer service and people skill is a completely different skill set. And so you can have one and not have the other, right? And I think by nature, most locksmiths or people who work in the lock and key industry in general, they're technicians, right? They're really good at the craft. And that can leave sometimes where they're like, hey, I'm good at what I do. People can take it or leave it. And if that's your business, that's your choice, right? You can do that. But it's going to affect maybe your company's reputation, or for sure, at least your growth and how long people stick around with you, right? So learning how to have good customer service and people skills is very important. Of course, and I can tell you that as someone who owns a few businesses, focusing on that and making that important is a good thing to deal with. And the truth is, maybe you don't have great people skills. Maybe you could be one of those people that's like, you know what? I don't like people. That's why I do the work. If I wanted to deal with people, I'd be in the customer service business, but I'm not. I'm in the locksmithing business. And the problem is that if you don't have someone else dealing with the people, you are also in the people business, right? And so I think, over time, having good people skills is really important. Now, listen, I'll just talk about me for a minute on this, right? Now, my wife is amazing, and she's actually much nicer than I am. Very nice, really cares about other people. Not that I don't, but she cares at a deeper level. And over the years, of over 20 years being married now, I can tell you, there's been times where she's like, PJ, I know you well enough to know that you didn't mean to come off a little rough there, a little hard there, but you did. And this is how it felt, or this is how it was perceived when you said this or that. And I think it's important that we just have people in our lives like that can do that, right? That can help us learn to communicate better, or maybe softer, or maybe more clear, or maybe even more stern, right? The other side of the whole customer service is just being a pushover for everything all the time, which also leads to dysfunction. Right. And so just learning those skills, and just, hopefully you have someone good in your life that can help you speak a little truth in times, maybe when you're being a little too soft or maybe a little too hard. Right. And so I think having those is really important. And I think really the most general thing that we can say about this is that our customers are actually what pays our bills, right? Our customers pay CLK's bills, right? And they keep the lights on. They keep myself and my staff, they keep paychecks coming in. And so really acknowledging that the ultimate customer when it comes to your business is going to be your customers. And so learning how to deal with them is important. And by the way, I think some people, just how they are, and I've even met some nice people before, they have terrible people skills. They're just not into it. For whatever reason, they're not into it. So be it. But try to get yourself a little removed from people, right? And get someone else to take some of that, those responsibilities. I think it's probably a good choice for you. But all right, let's get on to the next one here. Number 3, lock picking without a tool. Brandy says, if you're a locksmith, you better know how to pick, or all the other stuff is basically worthless. Our friend Joe Foley, what's up, says, picking without a leashy. It's funny, Joe, so many times people, I know a lot of people that have a hard time picking with leashies, which is funny. Or I guess I'd say funny, but it's kind of known as like the simple, easy tool, but it's really not always, depending on how you've picked locks. Like, in particular, if you're a raker, right? If you're a raker and you go to start using leashies, it's a whole new world for you to learn. Don't ask me how I know. All right, don't ask me how I know. But so you know what? This is interesting. Lock picking without a tool. Now I'm guessing they're meaning without leashies, because lock picking without a tool. I mean, are they meaning like just a MacGyver? Like you're taking your girlfriend's bobby pin and turning it into a little lockpick, or your windshield wiper blades? I don't know. But no, of course, I think with when it comes to locksmithing, learning how to lockpick is very important for obvious reasons. Sometimes, as we discussed last week with the Lockfather, sometimes depending on the type of vehicle you're going to unlock, it's not worth trying to damage it, prying the door open a little bit. It's important to just use a leashy, get that bad boy open and move on with your life. Right? Also with standard locksmithing, there's a lot of times, maybe it's a SFIC, maybe it's the system or a door or a house lockout, this or that. Learning how to lockpick is obviously really important, right? Maybe they mean bypassing also, as PAX Access points out. Yeah, same thing. I think that kind of goes in the same realm to me, is learning some of the lock picking skills without a leashy, maybe without a lockpick, using other methods is good as well. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. And I think lockpicking is the most easiest one to understand when it comes to locksmithing, right? But yeah, let's get on to the next one here. All right, fourth most common answer, business and marketing skills. Marius says, in the business, marketing and bookkeeping. In the field, lockpicking. Danny says, running their business, right? I think, it's just another example, kind of like customer service skills, which is you can have all the skills, but if you can't put them to use because maybe you're not so friendly, or maybe you just don't have any business marketing, you're not going to have any work. Right? And having work and having customers, well, that's how you stay in business. So it makes sense. So learning those skills, and I think there's two ways to that. Maybe you're a person that you're like, I'm good at locksmithing, but I'm not really a computer guy, or I really don't understand it. Completely understandable. I think the point is you're going to have to find someone to help you do that. Sometimes being good at something is not good enough to be in business. Right? You have to have some of the other skills that come with it. So find someone in your local area to help you. Maybe even a family member can help you do some of that stuff. Maybe you just don't like marketing. You just hate it, right? You hate getting flyers. You hate getting telemarketers. You hate seeing Facebook ads. You hate seeing advertisements. You hate when you go to the store, they have some gimmick, buy this, you get that, sign up for this rewards. We'll spam you to death with emails or SMS, text messages, whatever it might be, right? Maybe you have all those things. I get it. I think a lot of business people in general kind of feel that way sometimes, right? If that's how it is, no problem. Find something to do, like find the middle ground with yourself a little bit, right? Yeah, I think those things are important, right? And lastly, maybe you think you're good at marketing and you're not having very good luck. I've been there myself on different things. Find some help, talk to people. A lot of times what people like to do is kind of look in similar, like they'll look locally and see like, hey, what type of other service businesses, what type of advertisings are they doing? Are they working? This is the deal. I think you can call your buddy or even some random plumber almost, or electrician or any automotive shop, if you see them doing a bunch of advertising and maybe they're telling you it's working or it's not working, and, and try to take some of that as inspiration. There's a lot of ways to do it, but I think at the end of the day, we can all agree on that you can be a good locksmith or you can be good at what you do, but if you aren't getting customers, you're not going to be in business, right? So I think that's important to understand. But I can see why it's on the list. All right, Julio, let's go to the next one. All right. What skill should every locksmith master? Fifth most common answer is old school skills, no internet needed. Oraldo says to be a locksmith without using internet or YouTube. Yeah, and same with Lewis and Marks, the old guard definitely showed up there. Old school skills, which I think is what we covered, right? And I think the old school skills are going to be impressioning. They're going to be lock picking, right? They're going to be those type of skills that are needed. Now, they are picking on the YouTubes a little bit, but hey, we're going to let them pick on the YouTubes, right? Been around like the one guy since 1973. That's longer than I've been alive. I think people like that who've been in the trade a long time, they might not always like a lot of the new stuff or even streams like this. But I think they have a lot of good stuff to say, and all of us should be trying to listen and learn as much as we can from them. Absolutely. All right, Julio, let's get on to the next one here. I want to get to the funny one here soon. Let's see. All right. And lastly here, so many people chose Ryan, Jason, Paul, Locksmith Journal, patience. How true is that? There's so many times maybe picking a lock or doing a master key system, learning how to use a high security leashy, programming keys to a car, learning some access control, whatever it might be. Patience is required. And I'd actually put that way up there on the life skills is learning patience. I know that's something at times you can ask people here. Okay. Julio, don't put the confession. Okay. Maybe put the confession music on just for a second. Just for a second. Okay, sometimes I can struggle with not having enough patience. Okay, Julio, let's get that out of there. Let's move on, okay? Next one. Next one. All right, funniest answer. This is what we're talking about. From Andy says, making it look hard. Nobody wants to pay you when you open a lock in seconds. Put on a show and puff a bit. Keith replies, it just didn't take a minute. It took 20 years and a minute. Amen, Keith. Yeah, so I think it's so true, right? I think everybody, if you're good at being a locksmith, you're a good tradesman, and you can show up and due to all of the years of experience you have, look at a situation and know what you need to do to fix it instead of stumbling around or doing a lot of things. People can sometimes be like, I paid you for what? That was simple. And then everyone's like, hey, listen, it wasn't simple the first 30 times I had to deal with this, but now I understand. And that's why you called me, right? Because you want the solution. You want the struggle or you want the solution, right? So I think that is obviously really important. And if you're good at your skill, that's going to be something you run into, and I think that's what makes it the funniest part on there, right? Is learning how to do that. I know, I don't think much more discussion on that's needed because we all know that's the truth. Time adds value. Absolutely. Let's see here. This person doesn't have great communication. The locksmiths are high quality, show up on time, do excellent work, 9 out of 10 stars every time. That's what we're talking about. That's good. Yeah. I like it. But so thank you all for the comments. Thanks for posting all that stuff. It's really good. And I think it can be very helpful. And I would just say, if you're new in learning a new trade or locksmithing or lock picking or whatever it might be, I'd really take time to look through the comments and learn from people who've been there and done that. So I really believe if you approach something new with a humble perspective and attitude, there'll be a lot of people who are willing to share information with you. That's been my experience over the years, is really being willing to learn and not pretending like you know everything is really, really important because it's the deal. Even if you pretend like you know everything, a little secret for you. We all know you don't, right? Do I know everything? Not even close. You can ask my staff. That's just how it works, right? Not everyone knows everything. So let's learn from each other. It's part of the reason why we have the Lockboss community. And there's so many people that you've seen over the years share so much, and that's what makes it awesome. So with that being said, very, very cool. So hey, that's today's show. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for being awesome. Thanks for being an uplifting and positive community, helping people. That's what we're all about here. Anyways, you all stay safe. And most importantly, keep doing that good lock and key work. Until next time, see ya.